Hey everyone, and welcome back to News and Views. Today we're going to take a deep dive into what's been going on in the U.S. since Roe v. Wade got overturned.
Definitely a huge turning point in American politics.
Yeah, no kidding. We've got a ton of sources for this one. Articles from UPI, Fox News, speeches from the March for Life, even a piece from this Catholic news site called The Pillar.
Sounds like you guys did your homework.
Well, we try, but don't worry, we're going to break it all down for you. And to get you hooked, here are three things you definitely won't want to miss.
Yeah.
We've got this kind of surprising quote from our new VP, J.D. Vance, all about wanting more babies in America.
More babies.
Yeah, you'll hear all about it. Then there's all this controversy around Trump's decision to pardon a bunch of anti-abortion activists.
Yeah, it's been all over the news.
And lastly, we've got this really powerful story from a college student who was at the March for Life for a super personal reason. But first things first, let's set the scene. It's January 24th, 2025, just a few days after Trump's second inauguration, and Washington, D.C. is packed with pro-life activists for the annual March for Life.
Okay. This year's march has a whole different feel to it. You can really sense the victory in the air now that Roe v. Wade is gone. Plus, it's the first march with Trump back in the White House, so everyone's kind of waiting to see what he's going to do on abortion policy.
Totally. And the crowd itself is pretty interesting. You've got your usual groups like Students for Life and a ton of Catholic organizations, but then you've also got groups like the Patriot Front, which is pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Even the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, has expressed some concerns about them.
Definitely shows the diversity of the pro-life movement, but yeah, raises some concerns about extremism too.
For sure. Okay, so let's talk about J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
This was his first major speech since he became VP, and he really got people talking when he said, "I want more babies in the United States of America." I got to admit, when I first heard that, I was like, wait, what? What do you think he was trying to get at there?
It's definitely a bold statement. Seems like he's trying to connect being pro-life to a bigger vision for America, one where families and kids are at the center. He talked about how the well-being of families, not just the economy, is the real measure of a nation's success.
Interesting. So it's not just about being against abortion. It's about creating a society that really supports people having families.
Exactly. And he even hinted at some policy changes to make that happen. He specifically praised Trump for increasing the child tax credit during his first term, which suggests that they might be looking at expanding programs like that to help families out financially.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Vance. Now let's get into the controversy surrounding those pardons that Trump gave out. The day before the March for Life, he pardoned 23 anti-abortion activists. And that really stirred things up. Why was this such a big deal?
Well, first of all, it was a huge show of support for the pro-life movement right as his second term began. Some people see it as a really bold move, celebrating these activists as heroes.
Like the Pillar article we mentioned, the one that calls two of the pardoned activists legends.
Exactly. But on the other hand, a lot of people are worried that it undermines the rule of law. I mean, these activists were in prison because they broke the law, specifically the FACE Act, which is designed to protect access to abortion clinics.
So pardoning them could be seen as saying that it's okay to break the law as long as it's for a cause you believe in.
Right. And that sets a pretty dangerous precedent.
And to make things even more complicated, Trump also pardoned a whole bunch of people who were involved in the January 6th riots, including Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers.
It's true, and it definitely adds another layer of controversy to the whole thing. Some people are pointing out how ironic it is that he's pardoning someone who advocated for violence at the same time as he's pardoning these anti-abortion activists who are in prison for their protests, even if those protests were peaceful.
Definitely raises some questions about which actions are considered acceptable and how the law is applied differently to different groups. But let's step back from all the legal stuff for a minute and look at how this is affecting the culture.
Definitely. It's not just about the laws, it's about how people are thinking and talking about abortion.
Right. Amidst all the politics, it's super important to remember the human element of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some seriously powerful personal stories that came out of the March for Life. One that really got to me was about this student at Catholic University, Jackson Russell.
Oh yeah, his story is a great example of the human side of this whole debate.
So he went to the march because he's autistic, and there's actually research showing that autistic children are more likely to be aborted. It just makes you realize that this isn't some abstract argument. It's about real people's lives. For someone like Jackson, Roe v. Wade being overturned could be the difference between life and death.
It's a reminder that these aren't just talking points, They have real-world consequences.
Exactly. And there were other stories too, like this woman named Elizabeth Peterson from Benedictine College. She talked about all the energy and excitement at the march, especially now that Roe v. Wade is gone. It shows how, for a lot of people in the pro-life movement, this is like a victory, a chance to build a future where abortion just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's a reminder that this is deeply personal for so many people.
Okay, so let's circle back to those pardons for a sec.
Yeah.
One of the people Trump pardoned was Lauren Handy, a pro-life activist who was imprisoned for protesting at an abortion clinic. What made her case so controversial?
Well, Handy's case is interesting because of what happened. She and some other activists actually went into an abortion clinic and said they took fetal remains.
Whoa, that's intense.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It's
Oh, yeah.
why her case became such a flashpoint in the whole abortion debate. Even some people within the pro-life movement questioned her methods and if they were actually helpful or hurtful to the cause.
It's wild that even people who have the same goal-ending abortion have such different ideas about what actions are okay. It's interesting that The Pillar, that Catholic news site we talked about, called Handy and another pardoned activist, Father Fidelis, Legends, they were both in prison for blocking access to abortion clinics, which some people see as a pretty extreme form of protest.
Yeah, it definitely shows that there's a part of the pro-life movement that sees people like that as heroes, people who are willing to do whatever it takes for their beliefs.
Okay, so now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, what's next for the Trump administration on abortion? What can we expect to see from them?
Well, based on what we've seen so far, there are a few things they'll probably focus on. First, we can probably expect to see stricter enforcement of the Hyde Amendment, that one that limits federal funding for abortions.
Right, which makes sense considering how strongly Trump feels about abortion.
Exactly. And second, there will probably be continued efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. Some pro-life activists even want to see it completely defunded.
But wouldn't that be a super difficult thing to do? Planned Parenthood does a lot more than just abortions.
That's their argument, yeah. They say that defunding them would hurt a lot of women who rely on them for basic health care. So it's definitely a complex issue with no easy answers.
Well, it's clear that the fight over abortion in America is nowhere near over. It actually feels like it's just getting started. Now that Roe v. Wade is gone, everything is shifting to the states, with all these new laws and legal battles popping up.
It's a constant back and forth. Some states are trying to completely outlaw abortion, while others are trying to protect abortion rights in their constitutions. And you can bet that this is all going to end up back at the Supreme Court at some point.
Absolutely. In our next part, we're going to dive deeper into the political landscape and look at what Trump's agenda might mean for the future of abortion in America. We'll also look at how all this is impacting culture and society as a whole.
We left off talking about what Trump might do next. And it seems like he's not wasting any time putting his pro-life stamp on things.
Yeah, he's definitely not shying away from the issue. It looks like one of the first things he did was reinstate the Mexico City policy.
Yep, that's right.
That name rings a bell. But can you remind me what it is exactly?
Basically, it says that foreign NGOs can't get funding from the U.S. if they provide or promote abortion services.
Ah, okay. So it's like using American money to influence abortion policies in other countries.
Exactly. And it's been a back and forth thing for years. Every Republican president puts it back in place, and every Democrat gets rid of it.
So no surprises there. What else is on Trump's pro-life agenda?
Well, there's a lot of talk about enforcing the Hyde Amendment more strictly, the one that limits how much federal money can be used for abortions.
Right. And we talked about how it's already the law, but it hasn't always been followed consistently.
Exactly. And some pro-life groups want to go even further. They're pushing to defund Planned Parenthood completely.
But wouldn't that be really hard to do? I mean, Planned Parenthood does a lot more than just abortions, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. They provide a whole range of health services for women, and that's been their main argument against being defunded. They say it would really hurt women who depend on them for basic health care.
Yeah, it seems like a really tough situation with no easy answers.
Definitely tough. Speaking of tough situations, remember Stuart Rhodes, the Oath Keepers founder who got pardoned?
Oh, yeah. What about him?
Well, he's back in the news again.
Really? What happened?
So even though Trump pardoned him for what happened on January 6th, a judge just banned him from even being in Washington, D.C.
Hold on, so he's pardoned but also banned? How does that even work?
It's definitely confusing. The pardon means he doesn't have to go to prison, but the judge's ban is a separate thing. It's basically trying to prevent him from causing any more trouble, especially since he's known for saying really inflammatory things and for being part of the whole Capitol riot.
It definitely adds to all the drama that's going on in Trump's second term.
Oh, it does. And get this, after he was pardoned, he was seen hanging out in the Capitol building, even grabbing coffee at a Dunkin' Donuts and chatting with
Are
reporters.
you serious? The guy who was convicted of trying to overthrow the government is just casually sipping coffee in the same building he tried to storm.
I know, right? It's pretty wild. And Democrats are not happy about it. They're calling out the Republicans for seeming to welcome him back after everything that happened.
It's definitely a crazy story. But okay, enough about roads. Let's talk about the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about laws and policies, right? This is also about how people think about abortion, about the culture.
You're absolutely right. And that's where things start to get really interesting. Overturning Roe v. Wade has really energized the pro-life movement. They feel like they're gaining momentum, like they can really change how Americans view abortion.
And you can definitely feel that energy at the March for Life. There's a real sense of celebration, like they believe they're on the right side of history.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on being anti-abortion anymore. They're trying to create what they're calling a culture of life. That means things like supporting families, helping pregnant women, and really emphasizing the importance of every human life from the very beginning.
So it's more than just changing the laws. It's about changing people's hearts and minds.
Exactly. And it's a long-term strategy, but it seems like it might be working. We're seeing it in the media, in public discussions, even in movies and TV shows. The whole conversation around abortion is definitely changing.
And I mentioned that puts a lot of pressure on pro-choice advocates. Now that Roe v. Wade is gone, they're having to fight really hard in individual states to protect abortion access.
Absolutely. They're challenging all these new restrictive laws, promoting things like medication abortion, and working to make sure abortions stay safe and legal.
So it's like a battle on two fronts, both legally and culturally.
Exactly. It's a super complex and interesting situation, and I think it's only going to get more intense as both sides dig in and fight for what they believe in.
It's clear that this is an issue people feel very strongly about.
Without a doubt. The big challenge now is figuring out how to navigate these differences, to have conversations where everyone feels respected, and to find a way forward that respects everyone's beliefs, even if they're different.
Yeah, finding common ground on this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, this fight isn't going away anytime soon.
Nope, not at all. Overturning Roe v. Wade was a huge turning point, but it really is just the beginning of a whole new chapter in the story of abortion in America.
So what happens next? Where do we go from here? What will life be like in this post-Roe world? That's what we'll be looking at in our final part.
We'll be talking about the legal battles that are brewing, how the culture is changing, and the impact this is all having on women's lives. It's definitely something you won't want to miss.
All right, so we're back. And we've spent the last two parts of this deep dive really digging into everything that's been happening since Roe v. Wade got overturned. The energy at the March for Life, the controversy with those pardons, and of course what the Trump administration's been doing now that they're back in charge.
Right, and now it's time to look ahead. What might the future hold for this whole issue? Because it doesn't seem like the fight over abortion is over, not even close.
You got that right.
Wait.
If anything, it feels like it's just getting started.
Yeah.
Now that Roe v. Wade is gone, all the actions move to the states. We're seeing all these legal challenges and new laws popping up everywhere.
It's a total legal tug of war. Some states are trying to ban abortion completely, while others are rushing to protect abortion rights in their state constitutions.
Right.
And I bet this is going to end up back at the Supreme Court before we know it.
Yeah, speaking of the Supreme Court, a lot of people are wondering if they might overturn other rulings related to abortion, even in states where it's still legal.
It's a big concern for pro-choice advocates, for sure. Some pro-life groups are pushing for a nationwide ban, while others are focusing on getting more restrictions passed, like those heartbeat bills or bans on abortion after a certain number of weeks.
And with the Supreme Court having a conservative majority, some of those challenges could actually win.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Both sides know how much power the court has when it comes to abortion in America.
But it's not just about the legal battles, is it? We talk about how the culture around abortion is changing, too.
Absolutely. The pro-life movement is trying to change the whole conversation. They talk about building a culture of life, promoting adoption, and supporting pregnant women. It's not just about saying no to abortion, it's about presenting a whole different way of looking at life and valuing it.
And it seems like some people are really connecting with that message. On the other side, pro-choice advocates are working hard to make abortion less stigmatized. They're talking about reproductive rights and making sure women can get safe and legal care no matter what.
It's really interesting to see these two different approaches playing out. It's more than just laws and court cases now. It's about winning over hearts and minds.
And right in the middle of all this, you've got a whole generation growing up in a world where Roe v. Wade doesn't even exist. For them, this isn't some abstract debate. Abortion is a real issue that could affect their lives directly.
That's so true. It makes you think about how this younger generation will change the conversation as they get older. They have their own experiences, their own perspectives, and they'll be the ones who decide what abortion access looks like in the future.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We saw the celebration at the March for Life, the controversy around those pardons, and all the legal and political stuff that's going on.
We heard some really powerful personal stories and saw how this issue is changing our culture.
And as we wrap things up here, one thing is crystal clear. The debate over abortion in America is far from over good. The overturning of Roe v. Wade was a huge moment, but it was really just the beginning of a whole new chapter.
The fight's still going strong, and the stakes are higher than ever. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the next few years.
That's for sure. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into post-Roe America. It's definitely a tough and complicated issue, but one that we need to keep thinking about and talking about. So until next time, keep learning, keep those questions coming, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.